Okay, thank you. So راح نبلش. أول شيء أهلا وسهلا فيكم جميعا. مثل ما قلنا الكل تقريبا بيعرفني بالسيشن معظمكم. هيدي السيشن راح تكون هي الانبوت سيشن الثانية. راح نتعرف على very interactive tool و important tool اللي هي Datawrapper. طبعا بنرحب بضيف الحلقة اللي هو ميركو لورنز اللي هو الكوفاوندر لداتارابر. طبعا رح اعمل مقدمه عنه لاحقا. اهلا وسهلا فيكم كلكم، كمان بسيبلي وليشك و اروى وطبعا جونتر اورث اللي راح يكون هو الانتربريتر، راح يترجم للغه العربيه. بدي منكم بس اللي بده يسمع المحاضره باللغه العربيه بفوت على في شيء اسمه حد رياكشنز، بفوت على سبانيش. اللي بده يسمع المحاضره باللغه العربيه بفوت على بفوت على الشانل اللي هي سبانيش شانل، واللي بده يسمع باللغه الانجليش بيضل على الانجليش شانل. اوكي. هيدي السيشن راح تكون هي ريكوردد، وراح يكون في معكم وقت لتسالوا اسئله. اي حدا عنده اي سؤال بيبعت السؤال بالشات على الببليك شات، وبالوقت المخصص للأسئلة طبعا أنا رح أسأل السؤال باللغتين بالعربية والإنجليزية، وكل الأسئلة مفترض رح نجاوب عليهم عنهم. يعني رح يكون معكم وقت لتسألوا أسئلة. سو بليز أي سؤال عندكم، أي استفسار، خذوا راحتكم بالأسئلة عن التول، عن الداتا جورناليزم، عن كل هذا الموضوع. فرح بلش. طبعا أرحب بضيفنا اللي هو ميركو لورنز. ميركو بدأ حياته العملية كصحفي من عمر 19 سنة، وبعدها أنشأ شركة صغيرة لبناء مواقع إلكترونية بسنة 1995. ومن 2008 حتى الآن ميركو بيعمل كمدير تطوير ضمن فريق الأبحاث والتعاون في DW Academy. بسنة 2009 بلش ميركو بالانخراط أكثر بمجال صحافة البيانات، وطبعا هذا الشيء اللي دفعه ليفكر بإنشاء داتارابر لتسهيل عمل الصحفيين بإطار صحافة البيانات. وهون كانت بداية داتارابر من خلال دعم خارجي بالبدايات، وبدأت مسيرتها بنمو ذاتي من هذاك الحين. وبين 2009 و2015 عمل ميركو كمدير تنفيذي للشركة، وحاليا هو رئيس الشركة. طبعا اسم داتارابر بيعبر عن طبيعة عملها اللي هي أداة لعرض البيانات. مميز الأداة للمبتدئين، وأيضا فيها خصائص للمتمرسين بعرض البيانات أو باستعراض البيانات، واللي طبعا نحن حكينا عنها كداتا فيجواليزيشن تول. والتول طبعا بتستخدم عالميا حاليا بغرف أخبار مختلفة. باقي التفاصيل رح نناقشها مع ميركو من خلال البرزنتيشن. Let me now introduce myself in English. So my name is Ali Sroor. I am a data scientist and an AI consultant. So welcome for both projects, participants from both projects, Code Here project and Fake News in the Age of COVID in Morocco project. And let us welcome Mr. Mirko Lorenz, who worked as a journalist from age 19. Then he founded a small company to consult and develop web projects in 1995. Since 2008, he has joined the research and cooperation team at DW Academy as an innovation manager. And in 2009, he got very involved and active based on the term data-driven journalism. He thought that journalists must take numbers as serious as words, but without a tool like Datawrapper, it simply takes too long to create just a simple bar chart, let alone a more complex map. And this is why he founded Datawrapper. At the time, they had some outside funding by a training organization for journalists. Since then, Datawrapper is bootstrapped without outside financing. And from 2009 to 2000 until 2015, Mirko worked as the CEO of Datawrapper, but today he is the chairman of the company. In addition, Mirko also worked as a graphic editor at the New York Times for like a year. And so Datawrapper does what the name suggests. It helps you to visualize data It is suitable for beginners, but by now it has many professional features as well. And finally, the tool is heavily used around the world in many large newsrooms, such that the Times, Sunday Times, Los Angeles Times, and other newsrooms. And the rest, the philosophy of the tool and how journalists can use this fruitful tool will be discussed during the presentation with Mirko. So Mirko, you are welcome again, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ali. Hello, welcome everyone. Very happy that I actually can talk about the tool, that it's still active. There were times when it was not that obvious that it would work out, but I must say since 2015, we kind of got over the brink so that it was not so critical. Today we are doing fine, although the tool is free for most users. There's a simple reason for that. While the Times or the Spiegel are paying a certain amount per month for a version of Datawrapper with their layout, the single users never scaled. Although there are thousands of users, it's just, we think it's a problem even with small payments for many journalists around the world. So, you know, it was never a big source of income for us. And so we shifted to just corporate accounts for payments. And so everything else is free for everyone. So let me start right away without too much pre-talk, because then we have a bit more time for questions. Let me say this, I do hope that what I'm telling you is a story that has some two aspects of hope to it. First of all, I think we are going into a future where our societies, society here, your societies, will benefit more from having access to data for everyone, not just for some selected few. Maybe that is a big promise of data-driven journalism, that we can not only use words and recordings, but data as well. And the COVID crisis shows quite well how quickly data can be a big part of life. And I think data is always a big part of life. It's not just the COVID crisis. It's always important to know how things work and how the data leaves traces of that. And the second aspect of hope is that a small bunch of journalists with some very small initial funding can actually launch a tool today that is running around the world, is used by over 100,000 users by now, large newsrooms. It evolved over time and it took some know-how, but I think the essence of with Datawrapper is excellent people. I have to correct Ali in one aspect. I never worked for the New York Times. That is Gregor Aisch, our CTO, our Chief Technical Officer. He got hired away to the New York Times when we initially launched Datawrapper because they really liked it, and he built them something that is like Datawrapper for the New York Times. It's called Mr. Chartmaker. And then after 4 years with his family, he came back to Berlin, and now he's working for us again. And we are now kind of preparing cooperation with the New York Times that they use Datawrapper in a version there. So whenever you have a question, please trust that support@datawrapper.de will be at your service. It doesn't matter whether you're paying or not. If you have a question as a user, something not working, we have a team of 4 people by now, headed by Ilana. They will answer your questions. A little bit of background about Datawrapper. I was telling when we met half an hour earlier just to get to see each other. Datawrapper was very long located in a small town near Bonn because I worked at Deutsche Welle and had basically 2 jobs. And in 2015, the team moved entirely to Berlin. That is one of the reasons why I switched my role from CEO to chairman. After 10 years, it was enough for me. It's all fine. So this is a team in Berlin. We have by now 4 or 5 people more actually. They are all very knowledgeable and they are specialists for what they do. I'm not sure whether you have read posts of Lisa, who heads our blog. She has a real fan club because she's doing what she's doing, writing about charts with so much heart that a lot of people like what she's doing. And This is just, to give an idea, we are a mixed team of journalists, data scientists. Anna is from Sweden, she's doing the maps. We have designers, developers. This is how the tool looks. I guess it will be a little bit mixed in this audience. Some of you will have checked it out, some won't. What I'm going to do in the next 30 minutes is give an introduction about how you can use it effectively, both as an absolute beginner and as somebody who wants to do more complex stuff. Because by now, Datawrapper has evolved on the edges that it can do stuff that is in the past was only available for very complex tasks. So Datawrapper has a guided interface. It guides you through the 4 steps. You first upload data, then you check the data, then you can play around with the visualizations, and then finally you can use it for publish and embed. Now you go into all details. Maybe something to notice, this is all the work of Gregor Aisch, our CTO, who's stellar in how he works. On the lower right, you see that there is a colorblind check. It means that if you choose some colors, the tool will tell you whether people with certain forms of color blindness will actually be able to read your chart. Just one of the aspects of Datawrapper. So here you can see what is the intention of the goal of the tool. We are helping journalists and people from other industries like financial analytics and so, but mainly journalists, to create a chart and embed the chart instead of a picture. Because at times a chart can tell so much more of a story and the context than a picture or even a video, and it will kind of drive your story that you're writing in text further by using these visualizations, specifically if you want to show a development over time. And people can then explore these charts because these are new charts. These are not the old charts that are pictures. These are interactive JavaScript charts, which means that all the data that is in the chart is accessible. That is something that only few tools actually provide, that you can download the data and play with it on your own. Datawrapper is fully responsive, which is very important because today we have media usage where between 30 to 50% of the people are accessing online information via mobile phones. And on the right, you see how our chart then adapts, being responsible. It is perfectly readable. It simply adapts to the screen size. And here's just, I don't want to pick on anyone, but this is a Google Sheet chart. It doesn't adapt, it's not responsive. So you see on the right, you cannot entirely see what the chart could show. These are just some examples. It's a symbol map where you can zoom in, and then there are it's called tooltips. The data that has been uploaded can be shown in the tooltip, and you can actually do quite a bit of stuff that is more of like the advanced stuff, but it's not difficult if you can show the data in little tables and so on. So that is one of them. Then that might be very important for some of you. All of the charts from Datawrapper can be exported. They can be exported to a PDF, and then they can be opened in Illustrator, which means that they can be used for printed newspapers. And I fully understand that a lot of news organizations have a mixed business of online and print. Both is possible. That was a project for 1 year. We did that with Süddeutsche Zeitung. For example, to get these little dots and the little lines actually correct, you need to do color conversion all the time because they don't want to print these little lines 4 times. So you cannot construct them out of 4 colors. You need to kind of take all other colors under a certain threshold out that you have only gray and only black. Just an example of what comes. Then this is the current status. Datawrapper has grown quite a bit, specifically since the beginning of the year. We were hovering around 200 million chart views per month in January, and then we went up to several billion. Currently, we have around 1.8 billion charts being published and seen every month. And I think for a small tool that is quite considerable. So what is Datawrapper for? That is a discussion not only for beginners, but even for people who are advanced, because you always need to know what is the best tool for a certain task. And that's what I'm trying to communicate here. So the idea is that you have data. You have to bring your cleaned data to the tool, but then it helps you to publish a map, a chart, or a table. These are the three broad categories. It is designed to be simple, elegant, and that the charts we're applying a lot of rules that have been developed for good chart making. It's very important that you apply certain rules, that you don't do certain things, and so on. And a lot of these rules are built into the charts. So it's for the web, it's for the print, I already showed that. And it's for everyone. We don't expect people to be coders. You can, in some areas, add a little bit of JavaScript, but you don't have to be a coder. We see some journalists around the world combining Datawrapper with tools like Python or R. So they do the data analysis in Python or R, or even any other tool, actually. Whenever you reach a table, a CSV, a comma-separated value thing, or any data table, you can work with Datawrapper. And that's the idea.
Okay.
Yeah, we are
sorry, Mirko.
Yeah.
Could you please just speak a little bit slowly?
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, just for the interpretation.
Sorry. So what is Datawrapper not for?
Thank you.
We don't do interactives. Interactives are popular, but you need to do them in JavaScript. In Germany, we have a newspaper, Berliner Morgenpost and Die Zeit, who are really doing great interactives, but it's always a week of work by specialists, and Datawrapper is not competing with that. It's not for data cleaning, as I said. You need to clean your data in Excel, Google Web Sheets, or with any other tool that helps you prepare data. It's not for data manipulation. So usually you only upload the data that you actually show. It's a little bit a different case with the tooltips. So you can upload more, and I show examples of that, but you don't actually you don't compute the data further. So that, again, it's not like Python or R for analysis to find out stuff. That's basically it. So these are the things that you can create with Datawrapper. Charts, maps. We just updated our maps quite considerably. There are new functions. And the third category are tables. So let us try looking into some examples. This is a Datawrapper line chart. And as you notice, it doesn't show all the lines in full color, because that will be confusing. That is one of the rules that is applied to the tool. It's possible to just show the lines that you think are very, very important. Like in this specific case, it's the United States, Germany, and France. And please note for the beginner that with all Datawrapper charts, there is a link on the lower right, get the data. You can download the data and check it. We do know it's something that was started by the Guardian data blog. We know just 1% to 2% of the people actually do that. But these people who download your data and take a hard look at it might be the ones that help you find mistakes, advance the story further, show you a link to a data set. So this is why we think this is one step in making the data more accessible for everyone. So Datawrapper has some built-in effects when you hover over one of the lines with your mouse. It puts that line chart into the front. So this is a very busy chart, but because of this shading, it is still understandable. So here's another example. This is a chart about how much sugar is in certain food. And as you can see, the legend, actually, if you click on the legend, it shows only the types of sugar in this case that are shown in the table below. So it's a small form of interactivity. This is a dot plot. It's basically a bar chart, but with the dots, it's less busy. And so you can show ranges, for example. Here it's the scores for movies. You could show a lot of other ranges as well. This is a small multiple donut chart. Small multiples can be used for other charts as well. Small multiples means you have these small charts and 6 of them. And the human eye is quite good in comparing these types of charts. You go over it 2-3 times, and then you see that in Canada it's 48%. There's something higher on the other side, Norway, and so on. And so on. This is a very famous chart, actually. It's about the connection between GDP per capita in the right, in the lower axis. So the richer a country is, and then life expectancy. This was pioneered by Hans Rosling, who you might have seen. I can post a link. He's an incredible storyteller, and he created this chart in order to show how wealth connects to higher life expectancy over time. There's an incredible 12-minute video from the BBC that I have shown in all my trainings. I post the link later. So let's move to maps. Showing a map in a browser is actually not simple, because all the data in these JavaScript charts is loaded into your browser. So you must kind of consider that when you show these charts on mobile. But with optimizing the speed, it is possible to show something like this. This is the entire United States with all the counties. There are many different maps, say for elections, which would not be the same, but this shows like the maximum number of elements almost that you can show in an interactive map like this, because it's not a picture. So here you can see how this basically works with the tooltips. And you could do the same for the other one that we just showed. This is a symbol map. The other one was a shower plate map, the one with filled areas. And giving a bit of time for the translator. I don't hear the translator, so I make guesses. So what is really great is, since Anna joined us, the geographer from Sweden, we are now have over 1,800 map files, meaning that all these files, all these map shapes are available to you. That includes disputed regions. There are quite a number of disputed regions in the world. I don't want to touch any. We recently showed Ireland without North Ireland, and it got a newspaper into trouble. So you need to, for certain views, it's very important to have the right map. So there's another form of maps, and this is these ones. This is locator maps. It's a different concept. You are not showing like the map as I showed it before, but instead you really have a tile of a part of a city or a country. And here it's turned around because the height of the buildings is actually available. We use OpenStreetMaps as a data source, and we make it accessible in Datawrapper. And these are good maps if you want to show a location of where something happens. There were a lot of maps coming out after the huge explosion in Lebanon using specifically this technology. in order to get there, we needed to render 270 million tiles, and we have to update them every 2 months. So it's quite a technical process as well. Here are some examples of locator maps. And there is one advanced feature in here. As you can see on the lower left, the one that the paradise, it's about the size of a fire in California. And you might ask, how do I do the shape? Yeah, the specific shape of the fire, because you cannot draw it, right? But that data is available as GeoJSON. You might have heard about JSON as a JSON as a data format. And here is GeoJSON, meaning you have the exact size of the fire and you can show it. It's similar with the two maps on the right with subway systems. You don't draw these lines. There's data for that, and there are tutorials on Datawrapper to show you how. So finally, we go into tables. Ali, am I okay with the translator? Did I get a bit slower?
Yes, it's okay. But if you could, before you go to the tables, if you can just take some questions from the participants, if that's okay with you.
Of course.
Yeah. So إذا حدا عنده أي question أو أي سؤال يحطه يبعت على الشات. إذا عندكم أي سؤال عن المابس أو عن الشارتس أو عن كيف بشتغل بالداتا etc. فبليز اسألوا بالسؤال. Okay. Yeah, the first question for you, Mirko, is that does it take a lot of time to visualize data using this program or the platform? Yeah, from Khadija.
No. If you have never used it, please go to our blog. There is a weekly chart, like a chart done by one of the team members every week. And I can actually show that. And that will help you to understand how these charts are made, because you can copy them. Mm-hmm. I show you where that is because I think it's a bit unexpected that the company is doing that. So this is the blog, and this is a chart that I created recently. And did you see what's happening here? Yeah, they edit this chart. So if I click on that, okay, it's not working because I'm not logged in. But if I would be logged in, it would show me this chart specifically in order to. Today I cleaned up all my passwords. That is why I'm not automatically logged in. But otherwise, I would be able to work with this chart right away. So no, it doesn't take a long time. Okay,
thank you. And one important question is that also by Khadija is that do you have any kind of student accounts or student packages, or is just like either free or premium?
It's free. There was a kind of what we had is single journalists paying for it like 2 years ago. And then when students wanted to use it, we had to give them free accounts like manually, but we always gave free accounts to students. And then we simply gave up having single user accounts. So what you see here is all free.
Okay. سؤال كمان كتير مهم من معاذ عن الليمت للداتا اللي بنقدر نستخدمها. So another question from Muad, like he's asking about, is there a limit for the data that we can use, the size of the data that we can upload or use on while visualizing data on this tool?
There are some limits, but I think usually beyond of what a normal creator of one of the charts would experience. Like you cannot easily show all the departments from France. It's even more than what you have in the US. So I would say about 6,000 to 8,000 data points is no problem at all. And the limit is not Datawrapper, the limit is the local browser. Like if a chart has too much data that is loaded, you're kind of sending all this data to the user, and it depends on his or her connection whether it loads quickly.
Perfect. سؤال أيضا من أمنة بتحب نعرف كيف أو أمتى بنستخدم اللوكيتور maps. So another question from Amna, she's asking about when do you think that journalists might use locator maps?
Okay. Well, locator maps are to show that something happened in a certain place. These are just some examples. I think, I'm not sure, no, I would have to go into Slack, it's a bit too far. Specifically, the explosion in Lebanon, in Beirut, is a good example. In order to examine this, a lot of locator maps were used. And you can show structures. I did a weekly chart a while ago about the Chinese high-speed rail system. And in order to do that, I needed to upload the GeoJSON for China has the biggest speed rail system in the world, and they grew it like overtook everyone else in 10 years. Just as an example for locator map.
Perfect. راح اخذ كمان بعد two questions قبل ما نروح للتيبلز. So اول سؤال هو شو اللي بيميز Datawrapper عن باقي التولز؟ Someone is asking that Nada Nadine, Dua, that what makes Datawrapper unique or different than other visualization tools like Tableau or Flourish or other tools?
Well, I think the full truth is Datawrapper is from a generation of tools. It's not a direct connection to Tableau. Tableau is much larger and has more functions in, say, data analytics and data preparation. I like to tell people that ask this question, I think Tableau is ideal if you want to do data analytics and analysis, and you are, for example, the manager of Starbucks in the US Midwest with 1,000 locations. I think then Datawrapper is not the right tool, but Tableau is much better to understand data from these locations, from multiple versions. But that's not what you do in journalism. In journalism, you want to show that one thing has grown more or less, that a certain region has changed. So you focus on one aspect, not every aspect. And there, Tableau is falling a bit short. It's not as easy as with Datawrapper to publish your findings in a visualization. Flourish has been founded later. We know the guys quite well. I think it's great that there are other alternatives in the market. But beyond that point, there are not that many tools in this particular area. There were more, but some of them have been bought. And Datawrapper is among the 2 or 3 that are used professionally.
Okay. So سؤال آخر كمان إذا التول بتسمح لنا باستخدام اللغة العربية. So another question is that, from Safa, is that does the platform allow you to use Arabic language or supports different languages?
Yeah,
or
no,
not?
we're fully supporting right to left, no problem. The test user there was or is Swiss Info. What they do is they create charts in German or English, but they have an Arabic department and it works just fine.
Perfect. And the last question is that, is it so easy to embed charts and visualizations and websites or web pages, HTML pages, and so on?
Yes, it works the same way as when you embed a YouTube video. If you have ever embedded a YouTube video, you can embed any Datawrapper.
Yeah, that's perfect. So شكرا على الأسئلة. رح نكمل بالبارت الثاني اللي هو التيبلز، وبعدين رح يكون في كمان وقت ثاني للquestions. So yeah, thank you Mirko for answering the questions, and yeah, let's continue the presentation.
No, very good questions. Shows that there's interest. Very helpful. So sometimes a table is actually a good way to communicate, say, sports results, which are very popular in a lot of news. And this is what you can do with Datawrapper, with the colors. We recently, that's why I added it here, launched an update for our color maps, meaning that we now have a feature called heat maps. This is not about a map in the geographic sense, but that you can visualize the highest or lowest level values in a table so that it's even easier to read. Yeah, if I go back, this is just colors for the lines or the rows. And here you have a dynamic color range where the highest values are shown in darker color. And on the right, it's an animated GIF that's just for illustration how easy it is to invoke this professional feature. I leave it for a moment. Yeah, first you have the table without colors, then show as heat map for some values. And now for all values, you have a heat map. So there's more. These are tables with spark lines, and maybe even some of the advanced users have so far not used spark lines all the time because they are not available everywhere. A spark line is what you see, the red ones under 1980 to 2018. So 1980 to 2018, that's 28 years, 38 years. So that means that all the data is in Datawrapper, but displayed as a small line. And that is what you call a spark line. So instead of having a massive table, you show a development, here the price of crude oil, over a very long time. And then you add extra information. That is the use of spark lines in a table. It's very helpful to display a lot of data in an attractive, easy to understand way. And so on. These are just more examples of how users around the world are using Datawrapper. It is possible to import pictures into the tables, as you can see in the middle and on the right. You can show candidates for an election in a Datawrapper table. Or if we move to the green one on the left, you can compare what political candidates or a company or a car or a computer, like the features and what the difference is. So for all of you who have not ever opened the software and made a chart, we're going to go through that very, very quickly and with some advice how to use it best. This is how data arrives in a lot of cases. This is an example from Germany, from Destatis, our statistical office. And if you look closely, there are quite some elements here which are not ideal for software or machine reading of data, because the table has certain formats and we want to get rid of that. So we don't want header rows like here, like German population by age and gender, and there's an empty table. We need to clean this data a little bit, that Datawrapper can understand it. We only want one header row. This is already the data that you just saw imported into Datawrapper, but it's still a problem because the red lines show you what we don't really want, because we have the year already and we have German population. So we need to clean it up a little bit in order to have it. So this is how it should look. It's the same information and you can put the header over it later, of course, but for importing, you need this core of the table. And maybe if somebody's asking, it doesn't matter in this case whether there's a dot or a comma as a separator. That's no problem. We need to ensure that our formats are consistent. It can be any that you find in Excel or Google Sheets or elsewhere, but it should not be mixed. Like here, where the dates are all different. Instead, like on the right, it should all be the same format. That's the important part here. And then Datawrapper will easily detect what it is. Even better than Excel. I'm sure you have made the same experience. Sometimes when Excel thinks something is a date, it's very difficult to tell Excel that it's not. Here there are these little stars, there are comma separators. We want to get rid of those and just upload the raw data. We can do all these kinds of commas and special markers later, but for uploading, we just want the raw values. You can do that in Excel with search and replace. See, there's still a problem with the table fields that are marked in red because of the little stars. It's very difficult for any program to understand such data. And maybe if you look at line number 12, Dundalk, it's Ireland here, these two small dots mean there is no data, just leave it blank. So this is what is done here. And as you can see, Dundalk is now just empty. That's how it should be. Try to get rid of these 1000 separators, say in Excel, and just say raw number, just that they are not displayed. This is hard to read, of course, for a human, but it's much easier to read for the software, and we make it easy to read one step later. So when there are lines that you don't really need, like here, the total, you can calculate the total in the tooltips, but you don't need it. You can actually upload it, but not display it. But for demonstration purposes here, we show it without the total. So that's basically already it, because once you have your data in Datawrapper, it will help you go through the last steps and help you to create a chart. And there are, these are the resources. First of all, there's an Akademie where every chart is described how you do them. Then we have the blog and newsletter, which we just showed very briefly. When we have updates, we are active on Twitter. We have a change log on the website, meaning it shows what we added, quite some activity always. Then we have the river. Maybe we can talk about the river if there's time. It's a way to share charts. Maybe that's an idea for some of you to have charts from the MENA region for everyone and make your mark as a data journalist. It's a new concept. And finally, as I said, don't hesitate to write to support@datawrapper.de. You don't have to pay anything. We're just there for helping. This is a view into the Akademie. Very accessible, very easy overview. looks like a lot, but isn't, and it's easy to learn. You don't have to train to do your first chart. See here, this is an example. It shows how to create a so-called tooltip in the Academy. If you want to reach these tools, it's always in Learn More or Need Help that you just click on that and you get to more resources. Yeah, then this is the block. You just saw it very briefly. These are our weekly charts where we tell stories based on data. It's always a mix of trying something out and letting people find out something new. All the charts can just be copied. It's like a showcase. This is something that Lisa has added. She's doing deeper explorations into data preparation. Here, for example, what you can do for analysis and charting in easy accessible tools like Excel and Google Sheets. She did another very popular post on choosing the right colors for your charts. This is a change log. It's very short, but still tells you that something has changed. This is the newsletter. And this is Twitter. And maybe very, very briefly, we talk about the river. If you create a chart, it's your choice to publish the chart just for yourself. Keep it private. You don't have to publish it if you don't want to. You can publish it on your own newspaper page or your blog, or take it to a presentation. Or, and this is the new thing, you can create a river, like publishing this finding into the river for other people to reuse it. They will always name where they got it. Say on the right, you see on the lower left, 2016 EU referendum has 21 reuses. I really, really, really hope that in the future we will have more rivers like that coming from statistical sources and feeding into newspaper websites and then going to the public. Currently, it is not the case, but I do hope that this will change. Some examples of what is published on the river. It's not a structured concept at this point. We launched it 2 years ago, or 3 years already, but it's a bit slow until this actually works. So, so then if you have developers in your organization, Datawrapper has an API, application programming interface API, which you can use to automate charts. That of course happened quite a bit with the COVID data, that people uploading charts for their countries to say a Google Sheet, and then you can access it via the API and automate the changes. And if you want to go that is clearly an advanced feature, but it is doable, and it can make you really set you apart if you're a journalist and working on this level, and it's learnable. So in code, but it's not more code than what I show you, and so on. Yeah, I do hope I go out of this. No, I'm okay with the question. Okay, yeah, any more questions?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mirko, for your great presentation. So let me just head to the chat and read the questions.
I hope the translator is still alive. Not sure, is Arabic faster or slower to speak than German?
Okay. So أول سؤال هو إذا ال API هي part من الفري باكج. So my first question is from Muad. Does the API require a premium account or it is also accessible in the free package?
There are premium accounts, say, for hosted servers, for example, where we have them in a container, like financial institutions in New York. They don't want a normal server, they want a private server. That costs money. But the use, say, of the API and the update function, say, for COVID charts is free.
Mm-hmm. So another question is that can we connect like large data sets, like cloud data sets, like, for example, MongoDB or BigQuery, Google BigQuery or something like that, and like provide stream data?
No, that there are some limitations. What Datawrapper actually takes is the aggregated data.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like okay, you have thousands of data points, but you do calculations like a cross table. And what you really want to put to Datawrapper is the cross table, not the entire data. So I think what you need to think about is, what is the story you are telling? It's about the story, not the analysis. The analysis is in the big tables. Find patterns, find developments. So my recommendation is to go to a step in between, that you, for example, copy over or connect to a Google data sheet, and then you connect Datawrapper to that sheet, like as a cross table or a certain table.
Okay. So كمان سؤال عن كيف بلشت الفكرة بشكل عام briefly. So another question, Mirko, is that briefly how actually this idea started and how you actually decided to start this idea and how it can help journalists in general.
Briefly, I always worked as an economic journalist, and I had a startup in 2000 in the New Economy, which was bought by economic newspaper, and I was the founder. And we compared venture capital funded companies with the database. And that got me into this specific view. And at the time, I remember that was 2000, I wanted to create something that the charts from the newspaper would be more accessible and not just getting lost because they weren't printed and then you could not use them in PowerPoint. So that was the first idea. And I'm not a developer, but I think what I contributed is first the idea in all its simplification. We're reducing the time that is needed to make a chart to practically zero. Like when you have the data, the chart is done in a few minutes. Perfect. And then we have quite some consistency with the people I work with, and that's why I'm a co-founder. Gregor Aisch, the guy who was at the New York Times, is with us since the beginning. David, Lisa, we have a great team, and that gets us quite far. And maybe for the idea, once the chart was out, in the first hour after we launched our demo, the first newspaper used it and published the chart in like 1 hour. And since then, every week we had higher usage and publication numbers, every week.
Perfect. إلى أي حد طورت هذه الأداة المنتوج الصحفي في دوتشي فيلي بشكل عام وفي جميع اللغات؟ طبعا هون بدي أشير إنه داتا رابر هي يعني ما لها علاقة بدوتشي فيلي بدي دبليو أكاديمي، هن separate things ما إنهم مرتبطين ببعض، فقط مرتبطين بميركو. So my question for you, Mirko, is that to what extent actually Datawrapper, someone is asking about how Datawrapper developed or the data journalism in Deutsche Welle. I was just talking about that Datawrapper is something not related to Deutsche Welle, I think, or DW Academy, but yeah.
Well, that is not an easy question for an innovation team. Let's say it like this. In the first few years when I worked as an innovation manager at Deutsche Welle, we found that at times we might have a great solution, but for whatever reason, Deutsche Welle could not use it at that time. Yeah, like a new content management system. If they just have launched a new one, even if we have a much better one, it's difficult. It's just difficult, yeah, because we are not entirely aligned. And we changed our focus in the development team at the time. We said, we do it for journalists around the world. And if, say, 600 journalists, 6,000, 60,000 journalists use what we do, then Deutsche Welle can use it when, you know, it's on level 1, 2, 3, or 4, but we are not dependent. You know? And we do that. I'm not sure whether you know another tool from our team, Truly Media. It's a platform for collaborative fact-checking. You know? Yeah, this is how we work. And Datawrapper is just one example in this line. So maybe it's a lesson for every one of you who wants to be an innovator. Don't make your life more complicated without the need. You know? Why is Deutsche Welle doesn't need to be the first user. And we have a data team by now, you know, so I think my colleague Eva will be here next week or so, and she will talk about what the data team is doing.
Yes, absolutely. So كمان سؤال لنستخدم التشارتس، هل نحن بحاجة ل هل في payments مفترض ندفعها أو لا. So another question from Khadija is that in the river you showed that we can reuse charts and visualizations. So do we need to pay something to use those charts, or is it also free?
Free, and you don't even have to ask. I would like to teach the World Bank, which has a great data store. I like the data store. But why do they expect people to go into the data store, then do a chart, then brand it, then publish it? Why do they just not deliver it? The World Health Organization just the other day announced an agreement with Wikipedia that they will provide all the COVID-19 data that the WHO has to Wikipedia for free. And that is what we think is a river of data. Right? There are not that many journalists. There should be much more data in Egypt, in Morocco, in Tunisia, maybe, but who should do all the work? So why not think about a world of data rivers? You know? People from Egypt know that quite well. There's a big river running through Egypt. If the water comes from the source, it nurtures a big economy at the very end. It gives food to a lot of people. And that's the idea of a river.
Perfect. So another question, كمان سؤال من معاذ، شو أكتر challenges أو التحديات اللي واجهت إنشاء الشركة بشكل عام. So another question from Muad is that about what are the main challenges that are facing your company right now or in general?
As I said, I switched from journalism to being an entrepreneur in 1995. What I experienced with Datawrapper is that we are a software as a service company. So we are renting out, we are selling subscriptions to use Datawrapper on, say, for New York Times or Süddeutsche, and they don't care. Like, it's not a big, you know, they pay us a certain amount, but not tons of money. And they couldn't develop the tool. Software as a service is actually a boon because you make a certain amount of money every month, and it hopefully rises slowly, and then you just keep the cost under that, and then you're fine. And with COVID at the moment, we actually grew through the crisis. We had no shortcomings or other problems. There were so many people using Datawrapper, no problem at all.
Yeah, also another question that, or like, it's not a question, so what lessons can you give someone in terms of creating like such an innovative startups or associations in the future in terms of data visualization or data journalism?
As I said in the very beginning, I'm not the super smart. I had no money when I started this, but I was quite stubborn. And I thought it cannot be that it's so complicated to do a line chart. 2 hours, 3 hours, a map a week. You have to wait in many newspapers for a week to get a map. And then I teamed up with Gregor, who is like an outstanding developer. He did some work for the New York Times that is still, like stellar examples of data journalism. We have a very young but very capable CEO. David is now 24, so he joined us with 19, direct from school. His father is a software CEO, so he knew what he was up to. He's a coder and a salesperson, and he sells like I couldn't even do it. I would give it away, not getting any money at all. So it's a good mix of talents.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, whether you do it from Estonia, from Lebanon, or from Germany, getting a business running is always difficult. It's a little bit like SimCity. Once it's running over time, it gets easier, and that's the case with software as a service. So that is an opportunity to young people today. Use these technologies out there. Don't be scared, but see them as your own repertoire. I give you an example. In the very beginning, we paid not much money to Amazon for distributing the charts. We are distributing the charts ourselves. Like when they are embedded in the newspaper, we still distribute them. They are on our resources. And we did it with Amazon, and Amazon is great. We're using Amazon Web Service for a lot of things. But then the bills came in. It was 3,000 euros per month, 4,000 euros per month. And we were talking about levels of usage far beyond. I could see as a CEO that it would be 20 or 50,000 a month to Amazon one day. And then Gregor found another platform where we pay 20 euros every month instead of 50, because we found a better model, a better technology. And that is what distinguishes people using these technologies to their advantage, say for an initiative in Morocco or a new idea in Lebanon. That's what you can do today. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's super easy, but it's possible.
Mm-hmm. That's really important. Yeah, another question from Dua is that, apart from you being an entrepreneur and co-founder or chairman of Datawrapper, being a data journalist, what kind of can you advise or give them some advice about how to pick up a story like data journalists and in terms of journalism in general?
There's something that they said about how to be a good investor on the stock exchange. If you miss one buzz, like one idea or one great trend, just wait for the next one. And I recently tapped into the world of renewable energies where I was not very knowledgeable, but I watched a very interesting talk from a guy who was born in Egypt and then moved to the US and was a Microsoft manager. And he's now into renewable energies. And he has a 45-minute TED Talk style presentation about how renewable energies are getting lower in price and competing with fossil energies just now, like for the last few years. And just tapping into this renewable energy data you can spend years of your journalistic career with a topic like that, being the person to go to see these things. That is one thing that you really dig down into one area of knowledge. The other one is that you do it like Lisa, just be an excellent storyteller. She's basically not so much, she's a good designer and she's interested in data and so on, but her best ability is putting it into stories. She can do it better than everyone else on the team. Mm-hmm. So there are different facets to it. That's my answer.
Perfect. So كمان آخر سؤال هو عن موضوع الخصوصية والحفاظ على المعلومة بشكل عام. So yeah, maybe the last question is that what about the privacy and the security in terms of using this platform in general, and the privacy in general in terms of data journalism or data-driven stories from your perspective?
So being a private company that has no incentive to track users, we don't even use Matomo. We don't use any Google Analytics. Nobody is tracked and traced. Of course, when you have so and so many charts and so in the tool, we can connect these charts with your name. But there is no need, for example, use your real name. You can use a generic email address or so. It doesn't need to be your name in the email address. So there's a lot of freedom there. The second thing is that we have no tracking at all. We have minimal tracking. We're using a Node.js counting pixel. So we can see how many charts have been published and how often they have been viewed. But we were asked, because of the regulation in the EU in 2018, the new privacy, by all of the newspapers, that we need to sign a contract. And after they looked into our technology, they said, no, we don't need to sign a contract. You can't see anything. You cannot connect the IP addresses of people visiting the newspaper to any information. We're counting, but we are not tracking.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, ميركو. شكرا جزيلا لكل اللي حضروا معنا اليوم بالبرزنتيشن. الأسئلة كانت كتير مهمة، البرزنتيشن كانت كتير مهمة. بشكركم جميعا من two projects، من Code Help projects ومن Fake News in COVID in the Age of COVID بموروكو كمان project. Thanks for everyone. Thank you, Mirko, again for your fruitful presentation and for providing such kind of important information. And many thanks for Gunther Orth for the interpretation and the translation, and also for Sibylle and Arwa and Leszek and all the behind scene managers and so on. And thank you all, and yeah, see you soon in the next webinar.
Thank you very much. Thank
you very much.
And if there are questions, go to support.
Yes, absolutely.